Jake and Tom had been best friends since college. When they decided to go on a camping trip in the remote wilderness of the southern United States, it was meant to be an escape from their mundane jobs and a chance to reconnect with nature. They packed their gear, loaded up Jake's old pickup truck, and drove deep into the heart of the forest, miles from the nearest town. The first day was perfect. They set up camp by a serene lake, surrounded by towering pines and the chorus of birds. They spent the day fishing, laughing, and reminiscing about old times. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, they built a fire and settled in for a night under the stars. But as the night grew darker, an unsettling feeling crept over them. The forest, once full of life, seemed eerily silent. The crackling of the fire became the only sound, and every rustle in the underbrush made them jump. They shrugged it off, attributing it to the unfamiliar environment and their overactive imaginations. It was around midnight when they heard the first sound, an unnatural mechanical growl echoing through the trees. Jake and Tom exchanged worried glances, trying to pinpoint the direction. The sound grew louder, more menacing, and then was joined by the faint, maniacal laughter. "Did you hear that?" Tom whispered, his voice trembling. "Yeah," Jake replied, his eyes wide with fear. "We should check it out." They grabbed their flashlights and cautiously ventured into the woods. The beam of light cut through the darkness, revealing nothing but twisted roots and gnarled branches. The growling grew louder, closer, and then they saw them. Shadows moving between the trees, followed by the unmistakable glint of steel. "Run!" Jake shouted, and they took off, crashing through the underbrush, adrenaline pumping through their veins. Behind them, the growling transformed into the deafening roar of chainsaws. Accompanied by the sound of heavy, rapid footsteps and deranged laughter. They ran blindly, their lungs burning, until they stumbled upon an old, abandoned cabin. The door hung off its hinges, the windows were shattered, and the walls were covered in what looked like dried blood. Desperate, they rushed inside and barricaded the door with a broken table. "Jake, what the hell is happening?" Tom panted, his eyes darting around the room, searching for anything they could use as a weapon. "I don't know, but we need to find a way out of here," Jake replied, his voice shaking. Suddenly, the chainsaws stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. They could hear their own ragged breathing, the pounding of their hearts. Then the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps approached the cabin. The door shuddered under a powerful blow, and then another. A low, guttural voice called out from outside.
Come out, wherever you are."
Jake and Tom scrambled to find an escape route. They discovered a trapdoor hidden under a tattered rug. Without thinking, they lifted it and climbed down into the pitch-black cellar. Closing the door just as the front door of the cabin exploded inward. In the cellar, the air was thick and musty. The only light came from the faint glow of their flashlights. They moved deeper into the darkness, trying to stay as quiet as possible. Above them, they could hear the intruders tearing the cabin apart, their voices guttural and inhuman.
"Find them! They can't have gone far!"
one of them snarled. Jake and Tom huddled together, their backs against the cold, damp wall. They could hear the cannibals searching the cabin, the floorboards creaking above their heads. Suddenly, a hatch opened, and a beam of light swept across the cellar. They held their breath, the light narrowly missing them.
"Nothing down here,"
one of the cannibals grunted, slamming the hatch shut. They waited, counting the seconds, until the noises upstairs faded. When they were sure the cannibals had left, they cautiously climbed out of the cellar. The cabin was in ruins, but the coast seemed clear. "We need to get to the truck," Jake whispered. Tom nodded, and they made their way back into the woods, every sound amplifying their fear. They moved quickly but quietly, their eyes constantly scanning for any sign of movement. The truck was just ahead when the roar of a chainsaw shattered the silence. "Run!" Jake yelled again, and they sprinted towards the truck. The cannibals emerged from the trees, their deformed faces twisted with malicious glee, chainsaws and machetes gleaming in the moonlight. Tom reached the truck first and fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking. Jake was right behind him, shouting, "Hurry!" The engine roared to life just as one of the cannibals lunged at them, chainsaw raised. Tom slammed the door shut, and Jake floored the gas pedal. The truck lurched forward, the cannibals' weapons slashing at the air inches from their faces. They sped down the narrow dirt road, the twisted figures of their pursuers growing smaller in the rearview mirror. They didn't stop, didn't slow down until they reached the safety of the nearest town. Gasping for breath, covered in sweat and dirt, they stumbled into the local sheriff's office, their story tumbling out in frantic, disjointed sentences. The sheriff listened, his face growing grimmer with each word. "You boys are lucky to be alive," he finally said. "There have been rumors about those woods for years. Folks go in, but they don't come out." Jake and Tom exchanged a haunted look. They knew they'd never forget the faces of the inbred cannibals, the sound of the chainsaws, or the terror that had nearly consumed them. They had escaped with their lives, but the nightmare of that night would stay with them forever.